Welcome to Between Sundays. I'm Tyler, and I got no money in my money belt. Today, we're shaking the dust off our feet and wrapping up part 1 of our Matthew series. But before we send out the sheep among wolves, now that they've been as shrewd as snakes and harmless as doves who never leave their homes unprepared under any circumstance, let's give a cup of cold water to our worthy co-hosts, Maron and Barry. Good day, guys.
Good day.
Good day.
That was
How you
good.
guys doing?
Here we are.
Feeling shrewd. How about you?
Yeah, shrewd as snakes. Shrewd's not bad.
Yeah, I guess not.
I guess it's not a bad thing.
It's not necessarily
I
a
always
bad
thought
thing.
the
It
word
can be.
shrewd was like
miserly.
ugh. Like, I don't want to be around a shrewd person.
I mean, yeah, I guess it's all in the eye of the beholder. But
Yeah. Couple items of family business. We're going to start doing family business before we get into what's new. Family business. Number 1, if you've got questions for Between Sundays, we're doing questions mailbag all July. You got to send those to gracechurch.us/podcast. Go to gracechurch.us/podcast. Click on the submit question button, and that'll go straight to me. So we'll be answering mailbag questions all throughout July. And so we need you to do that. Also, follow Grace Church on YouTube and Between Sundays at the Between Sundays podcast on Instagram. Mary, do you follow the Between Sundays podcast?
Do I? It's Instagram? On Instagram.
Have you ever heard of Instagram,
it's an
Mary?
app. It's an app where people share photos.
Yeah, I probably
Jaden
do.
does.
Jaden would.
Yeah, I see his likes pop up.
He's a big fan.
And finally, in just a bit, we're going to talk about the powerful moment in Matthew 10 that we talked about this past weekend, where Jesus sends out his disciples for the first time. We'll get into what it means to be sent, what spiritual authority actually looks like, and why this Mikros commission still matters for us today. But first, guys, what is new with you? That whole family business part, that was a request of producer Liz.
That was nice. I like it.
It's like a double intro.
And it gives you a little glimpse of where we're headed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It only took us 7 years to figure that
Okay. It's double intro. I feel like I'm duplicating the intro here. That's just a more serious version of the intro. What's new with you? You were on vacation.
I was.
Last week.
Yeah, I was. I was in North Carolina. Actually recorded the podcast last week, Monday.
Yeah.
And then left for North Carolina.
Are we allowed to talk about last Monday?
Terrible decision.
What? Why?
Just like, I don't know.
You all right?
There were people in here I didn't know.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm like, what are you talking about?
I was so confused.
Like, I don't know. I looked over and there was this person here who you brought that was sleeping in the middle of the podcast. I was like, is it really that boring?
Okay.
To sit through this.
Can I just explain what happened?
Yeah.
Okay. My sister who lives in North Carolina, she was a foster mom for many years when she lived in northern Indiana. One of her foster children is now a high schooler. And she needed a ride to North Carolina to visit my sister for the week on her vacation. So my sister Felicia, did what she often does and tries to like finagle away. Like if she could get to your house, because she lives in like near South Bend.
Okay.
So if she can get a ride from South Bend to Fishers, can you squeeze her in between your kids and give her a ride from Fishers to North Carolina? So we did.
I had none of that context when you were in here Monday. And at first I was like, does Maron know this person?
Okay, so
Number 2, did Maron know this person? You said something to the effect of, I didn't something, and then she was at my driveway today. And I mean,
was like, kind of that, yeah. So
I was like, did Maron know that this person was going to show up looking for a ride to Carolina? And 3, does your sister know that you are bringing this person
to podcast recording?
Yeah. So I had so many questions, and then you just like left, and I didn't see you till now.
Just showed up in my driveway like with seconds to spare before I had to leave to get to this podcast. And so I was like, guess you can just follow me around for the day. You're my shadow for the day. And she was actually here. Really kind of a sweet story. We were doing prayer and worship nights, early on, like when I mean, probably within the first 1 or 2 years that I was here. She came down from northern Indiana with my sister who lived in Elkhart at the time while she was fostering her. And I think it was her last week of living with my sister before she was returned to her birth mother. She was here for a prayer and worship night. We prayed over her, and just kind of the three of us held each other, and we were heaving and crying, and someone snapped a picture of that. So yeah, the last time that teenager was here, she was 9 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Thanks for explaining that to everybody.
We had a great week. She stayed with my sister all week. Just reconnecting with her was really sweet and wonderful. We all went hiking together. Turns
cool.
out she kind of idolizes my daughter, thinks my daughter's the coolest person ever.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, just we had
How
a
does
great
Desi
time.
handle that?
I don't think Desi realizes it.
Oh, okay.
Like, I just don't think that it's registering to her. But my sister said, like, every night when we would leave, she'd just be like, oh, Desi is just so cool.
That's awesome.
I can't believe she would even give me the time of day.
Oh,
She's
wow.
just so cool.
Yeah.
So that was
cool.
really neat. Just my sister has kept in touch with all of the kids that she's fostered, and that's continued on, even to
That's
this
cool.
day.
Yeah.
Very cool.
My aunt and uncle foster kids, and they don't keep in touch with any of them. So when you said that your sister, this was a foster kid of yours, or whatever, your sister fostered her, is that the right way to say it?
Mhm.
I was like, this is going to get weird because, like, I don't know if anyone knows that this person exists or that this person's coming. Because my only experience is, like, they don't keep in touch with the kids after they get adopted. But
Well, Felicia is, you've met her. You've
Yeah,
met her.
one of a kind.
She's definitely one of a kind.
yeah.
That's cool.
She has pictures of her, of this teenage girl all over her house. Like, they've just kept
Cool.
in touch all
part of the
throughout the
family.
years. Absolutely.
awesome.
And now she has a large extended family, and my sister and myself and my kids.
Cool. So it was good. Good vacation.
It was good. It was the first time, I told you guys this morning, it's the first time I ever took homework on vacation.
Yeah.
So I'm learning a new way to live.
He partied hard.
And it's, I don't know if I think I've talked about this before, but both of my kids are also going to school online. And so all three of us had assignments to do.
Oh,
so
my
we would
goodness.
just find a coffee shop and
Yeah,
just
get your
set
homework
up
done.
camp and work away until
What'd Jed do while you guys were doing that?
he was here for the first.
Oh, that's right. He
half of
didn't.
the
He didn't
week.
show up till mid-trip.
No, he joined us, I think maybe Thursday. But the whole purpose of the trip was to see my sister, Felicia, the one we've been talking about, in a musical production of Matilda. So my sister was in the show, and her oldest daughter was in the show, and it was hilarious. Like, local community theater, in
Mountain
Burnsville.
Mountain kids
Burnsville,
doing
North
theater. I'm sure
Carolina.
that was.
Hey, I love it.
Treat.
It was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
I've only seen Jed laugh that hard maybe once before. It was
That's awesome.
fantastic. Yeah.
I saw Matilda for the first time like a month ago.
Matilda?
Yeah, my kids watched it.
Oh, okay. Most of us hadn't seen the movie, and
Yeah.
so we were just encountering it through the play,
Sure.
which
Yeah.
was
I
hilarious.
saw the movie. I haven't seen the play. Anyways, Barry, what's new with you?
Wait,
Wait, what's
song?
that? That's
It's the
Wizard of Oz.
Wicked Witch of the West.
Oh yeah.
That's what's new with me.
I was like, that's not Matilda.
My wife, no,
Okay.
sorry, transit hard right to another musical theater show. Not really that hard of a right. My wife was cast as the Wicked Witch of the West, and that
Oh.
is very exciting. This is not something. This is not something that she has really done before, like acted and on the stage. She's been
Right,
in
she's been in-
musicals,
yeah.
but she's mostly been dancing and singing. Now she has like
Like a
lines
character
to
role.
memorize,
Yeah.
a character role, acting. She's not actually doing any singing or dancing in the show.
Wow.
It's all like, I don't know to what extent we'll be doing any special effects, but she'll be doing all those special effects, melting and flying and all that kind of stuff. And so it is, she's very excited. I'm
can't
very
wait to
excited
see
for her. And I mean, there were a lot of really talented people trying out.
Yeah.
And several people for the same role. And so it was definitely not a sure thing that she was going to get this, but she worked so hard. I'm just like so proud of her. So
Congrats.
yeah. So she's like diving in.
Is she going to
deep.
be like a method actor?
I don't
with
know,
This?
but
Like,
She
she's
can
like,
stay in character
yeah.
at home.
She's going to be
I-
green
yeah,
for the
maybe,
next 6
maybe.
months.
I know that she's been like researching the actress from the original movie. She's been getting books about like the history of Wizard of Oz. She's
course,
getting the
of course.
actual book Wizard of Oz and stuff to get all the background stuff.
Didn't the original actress get burned on the set?
Oh, I
Didn't
don't know.
she like catch on fire or something because of the when she disappeared? They had to like throw a smoke bomb or something. and
Oh,
then,
maybe.
like, yeah,
I don't know. I'm sure I'll know all those things.
Yeah.
I guess like the paint was really toxic and
Yeah,
like
yeah, I have
that
heard
kind of
that.
stuff. So anyway,
Yeah,
it'll-
toxic paint.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm so proud of her. I'm so excited too. And I've heard her evil laugh. Like it's legit. It's so
Yeah?
great. So yeah,
Good.
she's going to be great. So anyway,
Yeah, congrats
that's
to
what's
Olivia.
new in the Rodriguez
Yeah.
household. We're having a blast with that.
Good.
So.
Yeah, that's
You're
amazing.
you're out of town next week.
Yeah,
Or
I'm
you're
doing a
gone
little
next
writing
week?
retreat. I just have a lot of things to right. Like the Ephesus pilgrimage, I've got a ton of content to figure out for that. We're doing this new sort of what we believe course through the Gospel of John in the fall, which you'll hear a lot more. Friends of the pod, you'll hear more about that soon. But I just have a ton of stuff I got to work on and think through and write. Sermon series for next year, like it's just a lot. So this will be a chance to kind of hole up in a friend of the family's lake house and just kind of get to work and do that. So
Great.
for a few days.
All right. Yeah, I'm going next week too. I'm going to the lake. My annual in-law trip to Michigan, where 18 of us will be staying in one house.
Yeah. That sounds like a
You
blast.
sound thrilled.
No, it's always a good time. It's just like, this is the vacation we take
Yeah.
each year. And so it's not really like, I say it every year on the show. I feel like I've sat here and said this. It's not a vacation. It's a trip. Yeah. Yeah. The dark waters. And now my kids like love being in the lake, and they're tubing. It's like they're big into tubing now.
Oh, wow.
So I can't like sit out of the water when they're in it.
Yeah.
So you have to be in
I
the
have
water
to be
with
in
them?
the water. Yeah, and they like doing things like putting a mask on and like diving to the bottom to like see if there's fish down there and stuff. And that is the worst case scenario for me. I hate stuff like that.
Okay, but now you have an excuse to like sit outside the water, right?
Yeah. So yesterday, are you talking about Lou?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yesterday, Lou,
Your daughter.
my daughter, she's 2. She fell off of a chair, or she like tipped it. She was standing on a chair and she tipped it over, and it did something to her finger, and she had to go to the hospital. She fractured her finger. She had to go to the hospital, and it like ripped the nail out of her finger or something. And
Well, they had to do surgery.
yeah, so
they had to like
they
put
had
her
to
out.
Put her out. Yeah, they didn't like do the full anesthesia thing. They just put her. They kept saying we're just going to put her to sleep, which I think that's what they did.
How is that not full anesthesia?
Because I think with
understand.
anesthesia, you've got the thing on your mouth.
You become like fully
and it's-
unconscious. with
Yeah, like
anesthesia.
the machine is breathing for you or something.
Huh?
I don't know. They kept saying it's not it's not the
it's
real
not what
thing.
it sounds like.
Yeah.
It's not the real thing.
But it was, I mean, so yeah,
goodness.
she was in bad shape yesterday. So I left
Yeah.
work yesterday to go. Shout out to Peyton Manning's hospital. I don't know if anybody has like bad experiences there with like the staff and all that stuff. I'm sure people do, but for us, it was great. They gave her like a Barbie to calm her down. And they have people employed who their only job is to come in, like when the kids get an IV or like a shot or something, this person's only job is to come in with like an iPad and like distract the kid from what is happening medically. So she came in, she's like, what do you like? Do you like Elsa? And of course, Lou loves Elsa. So she like put the iPad in Lou's face, full blast, let it go. And Lou never even felt the shot.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. How do I get that job?
Yeah, I know.
How do I just get the job of holding an iPad in a kid's face?
I don't know. I should have asked. She was like, I'm Carol from Kid Zone or Kid Life or something like that.
Well,
But yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
anyways, she got rolled in on this table, and I watching your 2-year-old go from like awake to like knocked out was not like, I had to walk out of the room.
sure.
Even though I knew everything was going to be fine. Like it's a fingernail, whatever. I knew everything was going to be fine, but it was
This
still a
is
little
also
creepy.
the first time you've had to go through anything like that.
Yeah,
with one
we've
of your
never had a
kids.
kid in the hospital. We've definitely gone to urgent care, like when Milo hit Lane in the head with a golf club.
Oh my gosh.
But that didn't send us to the hospital. So this one sent us to the hospital, and she's going to be fine. But the trick is she can't get it wet.
Yeah.
And we are going to the lake.
That's right.
She's
4
going to be
days.
devastated. Poor thing.
That's right.
So
So,
she-
you can sit.
Stick an iPad in her face.
stay
I'm sure
in the
everyone will
cabin.
understand. I'm sure everyone will understand. And I'm sure she will understand that she can't get in the water, you know, that.
Yeah, that's going to go
Because
well.
she literally just learned on Sunday how to like take her floaty off and like swim about 6 feet
Wow.
back and forth to people. So she's totally going to want to be in the water, and that's just going to be a mess. So yeah, it's going to be a great vacation.
Gird your loins.
It'll be great, and I'm sure I'll have plenty of fun stories.
Yeah, can't wait.
But so that's what's new with me, and we are wrapping up a series today.
Part 1 is
Week 11.
done.
Week
Yeah.
11, Matthew 10. First part of Matthew. We're doing 3 parts, correct?
4 technically.
Oh, great.
Because the Christmas series.
Oh, that's a different part?
It's part 3 about the Magi.
Wait, I thought that was part 2.
No, because we're doing a series in the fall.
That's
that
part.
basically leads into that.
Yeah.
It's going to be very confusing. So part 3 will be like Matthew chapter.
Hang on,
like
friends 11, of the pod. We got to sort this out.
11 through 18. And then we go back to chapter 2 for part 3.
Yeah.
Do you follow?
I guess, but it's weird to be like, hey, we're in Matthew part 2, and the next week we'll be in part 3.
All right. Well, then we'll just call
it
all.
One big part 2.
But this, whatever. It does not matter.
We'll sort it out. So we wrapped it up, but for the final weekend, what was the big idea?
Yeah, I thought this was kind of a good poetic way to end part 1, because we started on Easter with Jesus sending out his disciples into all the world in the Great Commission. And this end of part 1 is Jesus sending out his 12 disciples into basically all the Galilee, like just the region around, for a little mini commission. And what I kind of got at in looking at what Jesus does as he instructs these guys is I basically pointed out that he, in these instructions, it's kind of like Jesus in Matthew is breaking the fourth wall. He starts looking right at the camera, and he's talking to Matthew's readers, not just his disciples. And he's talking about the things that they're going to face as they go. And so that then makes it essentially Jesus speaking to us, because we're part of Matthew's readership as well. Yeah. And so with that in mind, it really brought to the fore of like, what does it mean to be sent by Jesus into our broken world? And I brought kind of 4 points, which I'm sure we'll talk about the 4 points. But the bottom line is that as we go, we are going with Christ's authority, Christ's presence. We are his representatives in the world. He's protecting us. He's going with us. He's preparing the way for us. And we have the opportunity to be his hands and feet in a broken world. And so we should expect that to not be so easy. We should expect there to be pushback, and we can't play by the rules of our enemies. And even though we may seem really insignificant, at the end of the day, because we're going with his authority, like this is how we'll change the world. So that's basically it.
Okay. You said that until this point, the disciples were pretty much passive observers.
Yeah, like bystanders kind of to all the stuff Jesus had been teaching and doing. Yeah.
And this is the point where he's like, now it's your turn.
Yeah. Go heal the sick, raise the dead, cast out demons, easy stuff. Simple, basic stuff.
So is this the first time he calls them apostles?
Matthew calls them. Well, I don't think
Jesus sent out the apostles.
Right. Matthew refers to them as apostles.
Is this the first time that?
Yes. First time in happened? Matthew, as far as I'm aware. It's so interesting because that word, what it literally just means is sent one.
Yeah.
An apostle is one who is sent. And so he calls them both disciples and apostles in this passage, the 12 disciples, but then he calls them the apostles. And so I don't know, maybe this is the moment at which the disciples become sent ones and therefore apostles, even though that word apostle takes on a whole lot more meaning in the early church later on.
It was just 2 weeks ago, I think, that you preached, Maron, about the calling of Matthew. How much time it was between that moment and the moment he said, hey, Matthew, when I said follow me, I meant it's your turn to go heal diseases.
That's a good question.
Because I was sitting there and I was like, I didn't, like, if I was Matthew, I'd be like, oh, I didn't know this was part of the deal. Like, I didn't know that when you just said follow me and I just dropped everything in my life to go do it, it meant in about 3 days you're going to be doing this. Yeah. So how long was it?
Well, it's hard to say because most of the stories leading up to it don't give specific time frames. Like, and it was this many weeks in this village. It's mostly just after he was there, he went to this place and did this. And so it kind of it's anyone's guess exactly how long there was between Matthew's call and Matthew's being sent along with the other disciples. So I mean, I think it's pretty fair to say that they were not quote unquote ready for this.
Yeah.
from the like the world standpoint, they were not fully equipped and trained.
And they were teenagers, you said.
Well, yeah, as far as we know, they were young. They weren't likely older guys. Like these
I'm thinking of the teenagers I know. And they're
not ready to wash their own clothes.
Like casting out demons and curing every illness there was or every disease known or whatever, like not on their radar.
Yeah.
Not on their radar right now.
I can agree with.
This kind of reminded me of the times when I was in high school and I'd be like sleeping in class and the teacher calls on me, but I'm asleep. So he calls on me to like wake me up. And he's like, Tyler, what do you think? And I'm like, what? Yeah, what are we doing? And I wonder, so when you were like, he did this to the disciples, I was like, there's 12 of them. Yeah. I wonder which one was like least prepared. Like, right. I wonder who's not been paying attention. Like, was somebody, I was like, I wish I knew like what questions they were like, hang on, before we do this, I have like 17 questions about these diseases. What do I do? Yeah. So like, I was wondering like if you guys were the disciples, like what's the first question you would have asked if Jesus was like, all right, go do this and here's all your instructions? What would you have asked?
For me, it would probably been like, he would have given this whole long speech and I've been like, I'm sorry, you mean me?
Yeah, you're talking to me.
Sorry, can you start over? Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I think I would have asked where I'm going.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I'm not supposed to bring a backpack or a wallet or a purse or something like that. Okay.
Oh, I've got all kinds of questions for you specifically about this.
Oh, so you're sending me to Nancy's house and you're telling me she's going to have an espresso machine next to the bed. Yeah.
Yeah. I it doesn't say this in Matthew. In Luke's gospel, as Jesus is sending out the 70, he sends them in pairs. And so I imagine that that's one bit of comfort, is that they probably weren't going by themselves. They were probably going in pairs, maybe. And if so, I can imagine Jesus saying, all right, you guys head towards that village and keep going. You guys head towards that village and keep going. You guys head onto the lake. And when you get to the lake, take a right. You guys take a left. And it's like,
everybody split up
and divide and conquer. Let's see what happens. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah. Were they all by themselves?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm reading between the lines based on what Luke tells us, that Jesus was in the habit of sending them in pairs, but
if he sent me by myself and I was like 13.
Hi, I'm here to heal your sick. Do you guys have any recently dead people that I could raise?
I can't even imagine how ill prepared I would have felt by myself doing that. So for all the times you've asked us, like throughout this podcast and throughout your sermons, to be like, hey, put yourself in the story. Like, imagine what this would have been like. I had so much trouble doing this because I don't have any idea how they responded or how that went or whatever. And you talked a little bit about why that might be, but I'm just going to read from verse 5, and then I have follow-up questions, particularly for Maron. So verse 5 says, Jesus sent out 12 apostles with these instructions. Don't go to the Gentiles or Samaritans, but only to the people of Israel, God's lost sheep. Go and announce to them that the kingdom of heaven is near. All right, Maron, I feel like you'd be great doing that, okay?
Oh, thanks.
Then it says, heal the sick, raise the dead, cure those with leprosy, and cast out demons. Give as you have freely received. I'm like, all right, yeah, you're probably still, you're good. And then he says, don't take any money in your money belts. No gold, silver, or even copper coins. Don't carry a traveler's bag with a change of clothes or sandals or even a walking stick. Don't hesitate to accept hospitality, because those who work deserve to be fed. Whenever you enter a city or village, search for a worthy person and stay in his home until you leave town. When you enter the home, give it your blessing. If it turns out to be a worthy home, let your blessing stand. If not, take back the blessing. If any household or town refuses to welcome you or listen to your message, shake its dust from your feet as you leave. I tell you the truth, the wicked cities of Sodom and Gomorrah will be better off than such a town on the judgment day. So then I was like, I know Maron. I know what...
You think you know me, first of all.
I know. I have seen the back of your car. That is basically like a small version of probably what you keep in your home. Oh. Just like clothes and food. And you say it all the time. You're
keep food in the back of my car?
Probably.
No, I don't keep food in the back of my car.
Mountaineering supplies.
Yeah, she carries this, or she used to. I don't know if you still do, but you used to carry this backpack around that was very heavy. And you were like, anything I need to leave at a moment's notice is in this backpack.
It's a bug out bag.
It's my go bag.
Yeah. So as you have heard this passage before, and as you heard it in the sermon, do you start sweating? Like, how do you personally respond to being so like, on a whim, like no preparation. Actually, don't be prepared.
Yeah. I have a lot of questions about it. Because I do feel like I could pack pretty light. And I have to just say, this comes from having to go to the hospital at a moment's notice. So I had a bag that had literally everything I would need. Phone chargers, toothbrush, toothpaste, just whatever I would need to survive a sudden overnight hospital stay that could potentially turn into days. That's where this came from. And I carried around this huge heavy backpack that was a life bag because it gave me so much peace knowing if my car breaks down literally anywhere, I'm good.
Yeah.
Or if I have to go stay with a friend on a moment's notice, I'm good. That's
Okay.
That gives me a lot of comfort.
All right.
So I could understand Jesus saying, don't pack all your luggage, that kind of thing. But not bringing even a coin purse seems absolutely outrageous to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Was he saying that because they were going to be crossing through some dangerous territory and he didn't want them getting mugged? Was he saying it because he wanted to demonstrate his providence and his power because he knew before they did? Obviously, he can see down the road and he knew, you're going to end up at so-and-so's house and they are waiting for you. By the power of the Spirit, they're just already waiting for you. They don't even know you're coming, but once you get there, they're going to take care of you. Like you said, there are people who are worthy to receive you. I don't know if I'm adventurous enough to have gladly received that call, but it kind of reminds me of The Amazing Race or something. Like I've actually seen videos. I saw a video recently. I think they did this in Japan, I want to say, where they started with virtually nothing and they had to make their way clear across the country just by bartering or trading or, whatever, turning $1 into $2 or whatever. So people are out there doing it for fun. That's kind of what it reminds me of. This just adventurous, Amazing Race type situation where you're just kind of being sent.
Okay, and then you said something this morning in a meeting that I was like, oh man, because Barry, you're taking a trip to Ephesus,
Turkey,
and you're taking Jaden Gaffron.
Stop it!
I am.
And Maron had a couple questions for you this morning about whether you were sure it was going to be safe for him to go. And so I was like, not only do I wonder how Maron would have acted if she was a disciple. What if she was like a mother
of
one
a
of the disciples?
That I think is what I relate to more.
Yeah.
That's a harder thing.
Yeah.
That's a harder thing.
You could just overhear the conversation. I know he said don't take a traveler's bag, but you're going to take this.
Just stick this right in your pocket right there.
Yeah.
Just take
He'll
that.
never know. Shh.
So here's the deal. I didn't have time to talk about this in my sermon, and I know I've told this story on the podcast at some point over 8 years, but I now understand at least a little bit more about how possible this is because I actually got to experience this in rural India. So I'm just going to recount the story here, even though you guys have probably heard it before, for the friends of the pod who haven't heard it. So when I was in rural India, I was there doing World Next Door. I was traveling around with this organization that is all indigenous led. They're basically just trying to undermine the caste system and the inequalities of that with the kingdom of God. And they go to places and do these amazing foot washing ceremonies where they basically have upper caste Christ followers washing the feet of untouchables. And it's this powerful, it's the upside down kingdom at work. It's this beautiful thing. Anyway, they went to this one random village and I don't remember why or how we ended up in that village. I got to tag along and I got to go as this group of people was there and we just kind of went into the village and said, is anyone willing to let us share our thing and do this ceremony? And they said, sure. And so this random village and just picture like flannel graph Middle East. This is what it looked like. Flat top roofs, agrarian village. Everyone's winnowing grain. I mean, it was straight up out of I was like, where am I? And we did this whole foot washing ceremony. It was very cool. The whole village came out, their kids around, people around. And then Deshpande, one of the men that works with this organization, decided to stay in the village to continue building relationships and maybe see if anybody would be willing to hear more about the gospel. And the rest of the group left. And I asked, hey, could I stay with Deshpande? And so the two of us with no plan, nowhere to stay, no food, nothing mapped out, just decided to stay in this village, and we spent the rest of the day, the afternoon and the evening, just kind of wandering around. We met some of the people in the village, and ultimately we were invited to stay in the home of the family that had that ceremony in their courtyard, and they just wanted to hear what was going on, and so they invited us to stay. And that's how I found myself that evening in the upper room of a flat roofed home in rural India. We were eating food with our hands around a single oil lantern.
Were you reclining? Were you laying down?
Yeah, we were all sitting on the ground. Like there weren't seats for everybody. So we're all sitting on the ground, and Deshpande is just explaining the gospel till late in the night by the light of a single oil lantern. And I was like, I literally just stepped into the book of Acts.
Yeah,
like
really.
This is insane. And so all that to say, it worked. I mean, there was the man of peace or the worthy family was there waiting for us, and nobody had this on their plans for the day. And yet they were there, they were open, and they were receptive, and they fed us, and they housed us. We slept there. They let us use
Who were they looking for?
Who?
Like how did they knew you were coming?
No.
Yeah. So who, like, you just showed up and
they welcomed us in. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't speak Hindi, so I don't know if Deshpande asked to stay or if they invited us to stay, but it was clear, hey, we've come to this village to share some really good news. And that's how it began. So that's what I picture happening when these young disciples are going out. I don't think it was like the way that we might imagine it in modern America, where people are like, who are you at my doorstep?
Yeah,
Get out
I
of
had
here.
two guys come to my door yesterday. One was selling like bug spray around the yard, and the other one was selling security. And I was like, oh my goodness, I don't want to talk to either one of these guys. And so, Lauren answered the first door, I answered the second door, but the guy I was talking to, I was like, yeah, I know all about what you have to say. I don't want it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's what I picture too. When I picture like hospitality in a different culture like that. All right, so Jesus gives these guys exousia, his authority. It made me wonder. I mean, I don't have to wonder. I know that I haven't really felt like I go about my life living like I've received his authority. I think, like with all the spiritual gifts tests and the Enneagrams and the whatever, all this stuff that tells me about me and my personality, I feel like it's helped me learn about myself. But I feel like maybe it's become very easy for modern day Christians to feel like the authority that we have is just a reflection of what we're really good at. It's not necessarily Jesus's authority in me. It's like, well, I've learned all this stuff about me, and so I'm really good at this thing, so therefore I'm going to go do that thing. But it's not. I feel like it's very easy to look past the reason I can do that thing is because of Jesus's authority that he's given to me. Does that make sense? And it made me wonder, like, how do we not fall into that trap in such an individualistic society? Like, he gave them authority, so therefore they could go do this thing. He's also given us authority, but do we always behave that way?
I don't think we do very often.
Okay.
Like, not to the degree that we seem to see in the Gospels. I mean, later in Matthew, Jesus basically says to his disciples, like, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Like, somehow he's saying to these, again, knuckleheaded disciples, like, you guys now, as my disciples, you have the authority to actually transform this world, and by reflection, you have the authority to actually transform the heavens by your actions. Like, that's insane. That's crazy talk.
Yeah.
And yet that's what it means to have his authority. That if I am his hands and feet in this earth, then what I do as his representative has like cosmic repercussions. That is so different than how I normally
don't
think.
Live like
no,
that.
right?
Because that was your number one takeaway is like or action step or application is you are sent with his authority.
Right.
And yeah, if that's what it means, I definitely don't live that every moment that I'm like, man, I better not I better not screw this up because
right. No, I mean it's really thought provoking to consider what would it look like if Christ followers really did live that way. Now, obviously, I can imagine a lot of people abusing that, and taking it the wrong way. But I also could imagine, like, what if Christ followers headed into a broken situation and actually believed that they had the authority to bring healing to that broken situation or that broken relationship, or they actually had the authority to call people to another way of living like that. That's just so different. And I don't know, it's such a complicated time because so many Christians have misused our posture, and so you kind of have to be a little more careful in how you wield that authority, because it would be easy for it to become a bludgeon. But yeah, all that to say, I definitely approach things a lot more timid and a lot more. I don't move in expecting to be the hands and feet of Jesus in every situation, even though I probably should.
I just keep thinking a lot about that word authority, and our modern sensibility and understanding of that word. Like,
and it is an interesting word. I was thinking about that.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted word. Like, I can be the authority in, a certain genre of literature or something like that. Authority can mean expert. You're the expert at this field. You're the authority in this area. And we don't necessarily come from, and maybe we do, maybe we do, but we don't necessarily come from a culture of representing somebody else, and I come in the authority of the king, or something like true. That. I think maybe there are areas in our society where that's kind of happening, but at least generally speaking, that's we're not a monarchy. We don't come in the name of
That's a really good example.
Else. Yeah. So I think authority would have been received differently by the disciples because they would have understood, someone else coming in the authority of the Roman emperor, or coming in the authority of somebody else. Oh, so you're saying we're going in your authority. It just would have meant something different to them. And I also think, as you were talking about people misusing the authority, which we see happening all the time, then there's also a responsibility to discern true authority and false authority. Just because somebody, I grew up Pentecostal, just because somebody came up to me saying, "Thus saith the Lord," did not mean
the Lord so. Thus saith.
Correct. And so there needed to be a collective discernment about all right, I thought that person was probably kind of off, but y'all think so too. Like, sure. There were conversations like that going around whenever anyone would come in with or expressing some sort of authority from above. I remember prophecies being recorded so that they could be tested, and not just cornering somebody saying, "Thus saith the Lord," and then downloading something that was off base. But for accountability's sake, they would record these things, both for posterity and accountability, and so that you could test the spirits. Yeah. So anyway, it's multifaceted.
Yeah, authority is interesting to me because it's like, when I think of authority, I think, and maybe you probably have examples of the opposite, but I feel like authority has to be given. I can't take someone's authority. Like if you have an authority on being prepared in all situations, I can't just say, now I'm the authority in that. Like, you have to give that to me. Like, it's something you have to entrust to someone else. I remember somebody asking me, like, who has authority in your life? And I would list some names, and they're like, why did you give them that authority? I'm like, well, that they've just always had it. And like, well, no, you have to give that to somebody. And so until this point in Matthew, it feels like Jesus's authority until this point was kind of reserved for him, like only him. And this is the point where he gives that away. Yeah. And so I find it interesting that Matthew's kind of like, he's giving a commentary on what the nature of discipleship actually is and Jesus' power. And it's like this shift from, he's the one with all the authority, and now other people have it. Right. Like, this is the moment, right? Like,
yeah. So here's another metaphor that just popped into my head. Like, in our judicial system, a judge is the one who has the ultimate authority over a specific case. A judge can issue warrants, and when a police officer has a warrant, that they are now, with the judge's authority, able to enter a home and do a search or whatever. It's like it's as if Jesus is giving these disciples the warrant to go and cast out demons. Like, it's, you now have my authority to go and do the work.
And without it, They can't.
And without it, you cannot enter.
But
you cannot cast out that demon. Yeah.
I'm thinking of the story in the New Testament where the demon says, Paul, I know.
Yeah.
But who are you?
Right.
Without that authority, you can't cast out demons.
Right.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Well, you have more experience with that than
No.
either of us do.
No. I don't want to talk about that. But basically, these guys are teenagers who are told to cast out demons.
Yeah.
And today, most of us are not doing that.
Right.
Should we be?
Was this in your notes for the day? This is quite the.
I'm going off
trail.
script. We gotta yeah, because that's part of the story. Is like cast demons and heal every disease known or something.
Right,
and it's like, should we be doing that?
Yeah, it's a whole can of worms. And here's, I think, my main reason why it's such a can of worms is that with a few exceptions, most of Western culture has completely shifted in our understanding of the unseen world. Like most modern Western culture has a very shallow or undeveloped understanding of spiritual realities beyond some very basic ideas of like there's God, there's us, and maybe there's a little bit of angels and demons, maybe. But like we don't live in the dynamic that the ancient world would have lived in. The ancient disciples, I mean, they lived in a hyper spiritual world where you were constantly coming into contact with forces and beings and powers and spirits of the unseen realm. And so their entire world would have just been a different experience. For us, we've limited everything down to either God, angels, or demons, and we have systematized it or written it off or whatever. We've rolled our eyes at it for so long that it's almost like not fair for us to talk about that because we don't really know what we're talking about after generations and generations of neglecting it. Now, there are some denominations that have put a lot more focus and energy on this. A lot more people have gotten into that in the Christian realm. And there are some corners where you'll find people who have lots to say about casting out demons and spiritual warfare and all that stuff. But depending on your church upbringing, you might have been raised in an experience where that's almost not even a reality at all.
Yeah, and this goes back to kind of what we were saying last week about like people who are told they're going to get healed from every disease known, every kind of disease and illness, and then there's a lot of damage done to them by people in the church who are like, yeah, come on forward, we'll heal you, or we'll cast out your demon, and then they're kind of the same, right? Like they're in the same circumstance. And then
it's their fault because they didn't have enough faith and stuff.
Yeah. So how do we handle verses, I guess, that tell us that we have this authority? And there's more Christians in 2025, theoretically. So this stuff should be happening more, right? There's millions of other people that are Christians now, when back then there was less. Yeah. So this should be happening.
At the time of this story, there were none because Christians was not even a thing.
All right.
Yet.
So like it should be we should be hearing about this all the time if this is what we should be doing.
Yeah.
But
I guess my point is
we don't see it.
Right. We don't see it. I think what we first need to do is to grow in our recognition of the spiritual realm as part of our worldview. We need to recognize that there are forces and powers at work in our world, that they're all over the place, and many of them are working at cross purposes to God's purposes, and we need to learn how to discern them, how to know what they look like, how they work. And I'm not just saying, hyper reductionist angels and demons. I'm talking about just like in our own world, we need to understand how the spiritual realm interacts and works before we can then start actually working to undermine the powers of the evil one. Like it takes first even just not knowing that it's there. And so I don't know, like I said, it's a huge can of worms. There's so much more we could talk about, but
there was a metal band, a Christian metal band that my son used to love when he was a little boy, like 3 years old, and they were called Demon Hunter. And he would say, "Can I listen to Demon Hunter?"
What?
Demon Hunter. I don't want to walk around looking for demons and whatever. but I also don't want to be blind to it, and I certainly don't want to be afraid of it
Right.
when it appears. And so I think my prayer for myself and my prayer for my kids and my family is to be in tune, to be attuned to the Spirit, to not just walk around in a cloud and not just walk around in a daze, but that God would give me his eyes, that I could see things through a spiritual lens. And if he presents opportunities like he has,
why are you pointing at me?
because you've experienced some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If he
Not the
presents-
healing part, not the healing the diseases.
No, but
Yeah, I've seen some
Some
stuff.
of the spiritual
I've
warfare
seen some
side.
stuff.
Yeah.
yeah, and an exorcism maybe to
Oh,
something
yeah, we'll
along
just
those lines.
leave it at stuff.
Anyhow, it is part of what we do.
Yeah.
It's absolutely part of what we do.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think that we intentionally go out there necessarily looking for it,
Yeah.
or I just don't think that that's what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think we're supposed to be wise, as you said in the message, wise as serpents and harmless as doves. When, not if, but when people cross my path and they're in need of deliverance, I have to be ready and I have to not be afraid. I've learned so much from people within this church, not just the Pentecostal upbringing, but within this church, about the heart of the Father, the heart of compassion, the splachnon that you mentioned.
Yeah. Splachnon.
I see that in Amy Osgood here at this church. I'll just call her out by name. Praying over somebody for deliverance, but from this place of deep, almost motherly compassion,
Yeah.
wanting them to be delivered.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I feel this passion for you in my guts.
She has taught me about how that compassion overrides your fear.
Yeah.
Like, of course, things are freaky. Of course, demons are going to try to manifest in such a way that causes you fear.
Right.
But the love casts out all fear,
Yeah.
overrides that fear.
Yeah.
And it's about being ready. It's about living as Christ's ambassadors in season and out of season, being ready.
I want to talk about the word worthy as well.
Axios.
Yeah, because Jesus told him to find worthy people. And in my brain, I immediately wondered why that word was chosen, because it implies to me that there are people who are unworthy. And so I'm wondering, because you used it in the context of like, these are people who have been prepared, and they're not just hosting these disciples, they're hosting Jesus, and they're hosting the power and authority of Jesus, and they are worthy of that. I think that's what that means.
Yeah.
So that implies to me that there are people who are unworthy of that. And I know we are all technically like unworthy of that, but the word made me feel a little weird, because like the idea of being worthy of this mission sounded weird to me. Can you explain a little more?
To me, I don't feel weirded out by it, and maybe it's because I just talked about the calling of Matthew, but like the Pharisees were not going to receive these people or their message.
So is it like a openness? Like that's what worthy means in this situation? Like we're open to receiving this?
From what I'm reading in this passage, knocking the dust off your feet is, if they don't receive you, they don't receive me. If they're hard-hearted and they won't receive, then move on. Don't stay there and overstay your welcome, or try to force your belief on them or beat them over the head. If they're not going to receive the message you are bringing, then go and move on, because others will. We see that in the parable of the soils. Some soil, the quote unquote good soil, receives the seed goes deep down and it springs forth life. Other soils are too hard and won't even receive that seed. I think there's worthy soil that is like tilled and plowed and soft and ready to receive that seed. And then there's almost pharisaical soil that's just too hard to even receive it.
Yeah, but then I'm like, what does that say about like grace and long suffering and like loving hard people and all that stuff? Because like, if I'm just supposed to kick the dust off my feet of these people who are hard hearted towards what I have to say, like, I feel like both things like fly in the face of each other.
Not necessarily. I don't think like, and I could be wrong, but like, I don't see a mandate to, and don't pray for them after you leave. Knock the dust off your feet, forget about them forever, and don't pray for them. I don't see that because I see Jesus weeping over Jerusalem, saying, how long have I wanted to gather you? I think if I'm going to bring it to a practical and applicable place in my life, it is not my job to go to my unbelieving friend in Chicago and continue to just kind of hound her. Mm-hmm. I know she's not receiving this message. I weep for her and long for the day that she will. And in the meantime, we remain friends,
But there's no dust on your feet.
I think what that means for me is that I'm not trying to force my way into her house with my message.
Yeah, I guess my picture of that is like, I'm just like brushing it off. Like I'm brushing the dirt off my shoes or whatever, and no biggie, move on. But that's not what you're saying.
Not in my practical account, no. In my practical account, she knows very much what I believe.
Yeah.
And will frequently, sometimes seriously and sometimes, just being funny, but she'll frequently ask me questions about what I believe, even challenge me about certain aspects of things that I believe. She knows what I believe.
Yeah.
She absolutely knows the message that I'm bringing, and she's not receiving it. That doesn't mean I turn my back on her and never talk to her again. It means I don't try to force feed her a message that she's not going to receive.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I understand where you're coming from with the question, because I mean, we're all millennials. We were all raised in a world where we all began getting trophies just for participating in things like that. And the idea of like someone getting special attention is a little bit uncomfortable. But in that context of Jesus's day, I think there's something to be said for people who were prepared or had the right heart or mindset to be receptive to the gospel before even hearing it, that they would be willing to open their homes to these strange young men who have this profound new teaching. Like, you look at the centurion that we talked about a few weeks ago. I mean, he in the other gospel, Luke tells us that he was like a God-fearing man who was well respected by the community in a way that he was worthy of experiencing Jesus's healing love. Like that, there's something there, which doesn't mean that like everybody else is not worthy of it. It just means that there's something unique about these people of peace, that are these worthy people that have been prepared to be the launch pads of the gospel in their community. And what I think is so fascinating about it is that it really inverts the way we normally think. And I kind of mentioned this at 11, but normally we think, okay, I'm the one on the mission, so I hope I'm worthy to be supported. I hope I'm worthy enough to have someone pay attention to me. And Jesus flips that around and he says, no. Like, you're going to find people who are worthy to listen to your message and people who are worthy to support you, who are actually, they're worthy to give you the resources you need. And there have been times when I've met people who have that mindset when it comes to giving. I try to feel this way when I support other like nonprofits or missionaries or whatever. I try to look at it like, man, I can't believe I get to be a part of what God is doing through them by supporting them. And like, that's the kind of people that Jesus is promising. They're out there. They're along the way. They don't know me yet, but they're already worthy of receiving my message because they're ready to, they're worthy to support you as you come into their town.
So the series, and really the sermon, and actually this entire series challenges my idea or our ideas of discipleship being passive. I think for some of us, it can be tempting to think that we go to church, we read our devotional, maybe we're in a small group, maybe we serve around the church or whatever. We talk to people that we know about our faith. We think that that's kind of what discipleship's all about. But I think what this sermon and this series really challenges is that discipleship's not just about managing your sin and waiting to go to heaven.
Right.
There's an active part of discipleship, and we make it makes me wonder more about our mission. Like the Grace Church's mission is we make disciples of Jesus and launch them into the mission of God. And so as I'm listening to the sermon, I'm like, what does that mean? Because clearly Jesus is sending these people in the Great Commission. He's sending people to all nations. It's easy for me to forget the second part of our mission, that we are also supposed to launch and be launched into the mission of God. We don't always embrace being sent. That I think the sermons shined a light on. So what do you guys think of? What do you think of that? Do you think that being a disciple means like being willing to be launched or to be sent? And what is that? I know it's different for everybody, but do you agree that sometimes we get a little passive in what it means to be a disciple? And then if not, like what do we do about that?
Well, I think there's a passive and an active component of being a disciple. Passive in the sense of, as we are formed to be like Jesus, then we respond like Jesus when things happen to us or when we encounter certain things. That's more of a passive. It's more of becoming who you are, an identity thing. But there is, like you said, there's that active. There's the sent component. We're sent. And here's how I think of the mission statement. We make disciples of Jesus. That's the passive component, in the sense of we're shaping people to be like Jesus, to think like Jesus, to act like Jesus. And then we launch them into the mission of God. And to me, what is the mission of God? The mission of God is to heal the broken places of the world, right? To bring people back into relationship with God, to heal pain and division, to heal our planet, to do all the 6 broken places, to heal them all. That's what God's in the business of doing. And so when we are launched into that mission, it looks like joining him in healing those things. So you listed out early in your beginning of your question, you listed out some things that I would consider actually being sent, like going and having meaningful conversations with people that don't know God. I think that's a part of being launched into God's mission. So is even sometimes loving people and stepping into the discomfort of their lives. I don't think that being launched into the mission of God necessarily means that you end up being sent as a missionary to sub-Saharan Africa or something. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily mean that you sell everything you have and just become a wandering preacher or something like that. I think you can be launched into the mission of God as a stay-at-home mom, or as a person working in the corporate world, or as a student. Being launched to me is all about the active component of actually like seeking to heal the brokenness of the world wherever you happen to be. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. I'm thinking about my sister. We talked about her at the top of this episode, but everywhere she has gone, from the south suburbs of Chicago, where she was a 3rd grade teacher, where she loved students in a public school, but she loved them in the name of Jesus. And then she moved to Elkhart, Indiana, where she took on foster kids, and she loved those kids and is still loving them to this day. Now she's essentially a stay-at-home mom of 4 kids, and that's her mission field every single day. But wherever she's gone, I could kind of trace her path from Illinois to Indiana down to North Carolina. She's left the love of Jesus in her wake. Yeah. She has, to, I guess, riff off of Micah 6:8. She's done justly, and she's loved mercy, and she's walked humbly everywhere that she goes. And so for her, Christianity is not just about believing the right things or avoiding the wrong things. Right. But there is a very active component of doing and loving and walking. Yeah. And I think all of us are trying to do that. I hope that I've left that kind of trail in my wake from Chicago to here, and every place in between. But that's what it is. As we journey through this life, we leave that wake of God's justice and God's love as we walk.
Yeah, I love that mental image of the path that she's kind of left in her wake. And I even said it in my message, something about like wherever we go, new creation is meant to be springing up behind us. And it's like, I could see that with her. She's left healed lives. She's left people who've had dignity. She's left people who felt loved. She's left truth. Like everywhere she goes, it's like I picture this desolate valley and this one little bright, sunshiny path of flowers and greenery and life that just goes wherever she goes. Cause that's what it means to follow Jesus and be launched.
Yeah. But there is a component. I mean, for her specifically, I don't know, but it sounds like it's true, where it's like, you got to do something uncomfortable. Like these guys were teenagers and they were called to go do all this really uncomfortable stuff, probably for them.
Yeah.
She has probably been in situations that weren't always super comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's what I mean by being sent is like being open or attuned to like something different or something uncomfortable that Jesus is asking you to do or calling you to do. Because I agree, like having conversations about your faith could be being sent, but if my conversations with my faith are only happening with my best Christian friends, like is that, and I'm like super comfortable about that, like is that really being sent, or is God calling me somewhere, like is God trying to send me somewhere else that is uncomfortable? Maybe not physically, but like, you know, and so.
I think that's actually really interesting. In my experience, it's just my personal life, all of the times where I have felt the Spirit calling me to take a step, to be launched to whatever's next, it is always a little bit more uncomfortable than the last one, or it's always just another stretch of faith. And what I call that is the path of yes. And the reason I call it that, back when I was doing World Next Door, I'd meet people like Deshpande I mentioned earlier, or Ira in Ukraine, or Pastor Fred in Kenya, like these unbelievable people with just absolute compassion and unbelievable Christ-likeness in their lives. And I would ask them, like, how did you get so extreme in your faith? And they'd look at me like I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you're crazy. You're out on the limb of what's possible. Right. And they're like, no. And then as I came to learn their stories, what was it? It was just a lifetime of walking that path of yes, of taking that next slightly uncomfortable step to say yes to the Spirit, and then the next one, and then the next one. And before long, like their lives are radiant. Yeah. And I think that's what it looks like. It looks like listening to what the Spirit is calling me to do right now. And it's probably not going to be to jump and become Ira Venglovska in Ukraine. It's probably going to be, for me, it's going to be, what is Barry being called to do in this next step? That's what it looks like. And I take that next step. If I say yes, it'll be uncomfortable. God will show up for me. And then I'll be given an invitation to take another step. And if I say yes to that, God will show up, and it just keeps happening. And eventually I look back and I have a track record of God's faithfulness. So it never stops being uncomfortable, but the longer you walk that path, the more you have this track record that you can look back on and say, well, God came through for me before. And so I would imagine, Maron, your sister, she now is having a much easier time saying yes to the call because she knows what happens when she says yes. And I just think that's where so many Christ followers are kind of fail to launch. They never actually get out there because they get intimidated by that first uncomfortable step and never take it. So that's why.
That's why I manage the facilities team now. I just needed to take a step
into the uncomfort, discomfort.
Into the unknown.
I'm being sent
Call me out
to manage facilities.
There's so many relevant songs here.
Oh shit! Oh man! All right. Last question. You ended the series with the mini commission. It's not like the Great Commission. It's a mini commission. And you've said multiple times that Matthew's a discipleship manual, and I feel like this chapter and these verses like really crystallize that point. We're doing this series again, or part 2 and part 3 later on this year. Is it going to be some of the same themes moving forward, or are there new threads that you're going to try to weave together in part 2 and part 3?
Yes, the themes will be very similar. We're going to see them develop over time. We're going to be doing some fun little things, like, you know how we did a little 3-week mini series on the Sermon on the Mount in this series. In the fall, we're going to do a little 3-week mini series on the Apostle Peter, and 3 scenes in the Gospel of Matthew back to back of Peter's experience with Jesus and what that teaches us. So there'll be cool stuff like that. That'll just be a little bit of a departure. But yeah, the same themes are going to keep coming back again and again. And I just hope it deepens everybody's experience of the Gospel of Matthew.
Cool.
And I got to say ahead of time, it was brutal picking, I think it was, 10 weeks for the fall series or something like that.
Why?
Because from Matthew, just go flip through your Bibles and look at Matthew chapters 11 through 20, through 21 or something like that, and tell me what 10 passages you would pick. There are like 40 good ones. So it was brutal, but I think we landed on some good ones, and I found some creative ways to kind of bring a couple passages into the same message. So,
All right.
yeah.
We got to wrap there, but I mean, I've really enjoyed this series. 11 weeks at the beginning, I was like, what are we doing with 11 weeks sermon series? But and that's just part one.
It's just part one. I think it works out to like 45 messages or something like that.
But I think it's been really good, and I think we'll look back on it being like, I mean, you keep calling it a discipleship manual, and I think that we can look back on it being like, this is there's a lot of kind of commentary or statements of what it means to be a disciple. And as we flush out like our discipleship at Grace, I feel like this is a series we'll look back on. So.
I hope so. And I hope that like Grace people in the years to come, as they are reading Matthew on their own or they're studying Matthew, I hope, even though they're not going to remember the specific sermons, I hope they remember a discipleship manual, Kingdom Manifesto, Story of Fulfillment, and then some of the other secondary themes, authority. I hope they can like picture the Roman Empire engaging with the early church. Maybe they're thinking about
Star
the end
Wars.
of the first century, Star Wars. Yeah. Those kinds of things. I hope those sorts of things stick with them so that when they're reading Matthew on their own, it comes to life in ways that maybe it hasn't before. So that's what I'm hoping for.
So we return to this book of the Bible in a couple of months in October. Right?
November. Yeah.
So I'll take it from here. What's next is Summerfest.
Yeah.
I know that. Summerfest. So we're doing things a little bit differently. As I mentioned at the top of the show, next week we have already recorded the episode. Milo, my son,
Your son,
is coming in, and we interview him for a little bit. But we're going to do stuff like that every week where we're going to have guests and answer mailbag questions and do fun stuff. So again, don't forget to send in your questions. Go to gracechurch.us/podcast and send us anything you want to talk about. Milo will be here next week, and we'll see you then. Maron, will you please send us out?
Yeah. Do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God.
And we'll see you on the other side of Sunday.